want to talk about five what I would term owner-inflicted improvements I've seen more often lately that may be very, very expensive to install, but may not add much value to your home. And sometimes they may actually reduce the value of your home. Now, I approach the subject really cautiously because the great thing about owning a home is you can do whatever you want with it, and homes are made to be enjoyed. So, if one of these improvements that I'm about to talk about is something that you're really excited about installing, that's awesome. Go for it. I hope it brings you many years of enjoyment. It is your home, and this is America. I'm just offering this so that anybody listening is aware of the impact that it may have on the resale value of the home and a prospective buyer's opinion of it. And as is the case with so many things, I may be totally off base on one or more of these, but this is just based on buyer reactions I've seen over and over again to these sorts of improvements. So hopefully this isn't too controversial, but we'll see. The first improvement are enclosed patios. Now, I'm not talking about covered patios. Covered patios are awesome. I'm talking about patios that homeowners fully enclose, usually with windows of some sort, and turn into something that's kind of a room, but kind of not in a room, kind of not a room. It doesn't add to your square footage. It's like a zombie room. It's neither fully living nor fully dead. It's just kind of somewhere in between. Now, I'm aware that there are parts of the country where these fully enclosed porches are hugely popular. In fact, I was in Tampa last year enjoying a past client's enclosed porch, and I really appreciated not having 100,000 tiny flesh-eating beasties gnawing at my skin. But in Reno, from my observations, it's just not something that is needed as much. It's so much better to have the space be a covered patio that still lets in the fresh air. We have a low humidity climate. Our climate's pretty moderate, and our biting insect population is not nearly as aggressive and warlike as some other parts of the country. And our climate's certainly not like Buffalo or Cleveland or one of those Great Lakes areas where I see a lot of covered patios because it's the only way that you can enjoy your yard for more than half of the year with all the snow and ice that they get. There's just no need to take a big chunk of your backyard and turn it into a room that's not really a room in this climate. This is especially true if you don't have a ton of backyard space to work with in the first place. Because if you take a huge chunk of your backyard and make it into sunroom type thing, robbing from what could be a backyard, I've just consistently seen that buyers are turned off by that kind of setup in Reno. And on top of that, I've seen issues with water intrusion and bad drainage in the way that these enclosed porches are attached to the home. And so generally, my clients haven't found them desirable. And this is especially true when they put a hot tub in these enclosed porches. My least favorite word in the English language is probably moist. And unfortunately, that's the best word to describe an enclosed patio with a hot tub in it. So I would steer away from enclosed patios. They're pretty expensive, and I don't think that they add a ton of value, and they may detract from value. The second one is walk-in bathtubs. I've seen a lot more of these walk-in bathtubs lately. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's a picture of one. It's literally a bathtub. You open the door, walk in, shut the door, and then you can have your bathtub and have your tubby time. Once again, I've got to be totally careful. If you have an elderly loved one who lives with you and he or she absolutely needs a walk-in bathtub to have enjoyment of life, I totally get it. My grandma lived with us for 6 years before she passed away. And Alicia and I totally understand the work that goes into caring for an elderly loved one. And so sometimes you do what you have to do. But what I can tell you is that those tubs are terribly expensive. And I have not seen a buyer yet who walks into a home, sees one of those, and is excited about it. Usually they're thinking how much it's going to cost to remodel the bathroom to get rid of the walk-in tub. And, that's expensive too. Now, I have a half-baked theory for why I think people don't like walk-in bathtubs. We all know that each day we're on the earth, we're hastening towards our inevitable demise. And each day we're getting older, and we don't want appliances in our house that remind us of that. Walk-in bathtubs just remind us that one day our knees and hips aren't going to work, and we're going to need assistance to do simple things like bathing. And we as a people don't want to think about that or be reminded of that. Same thing goes for chairlifts on stairs. Buyers who want to show their knees some love have no problem buying a one-story home. But buying a home with a chairlift is just a bridge too far. And when buyers see those, I promise you, they're just thinking about that old guy on the cartoon Up. So if you need to buy one, do what you have to do. But I think it does not help and may hurt you on your resale value. The third owner-inflicted improvement is concreting over your entire backyard. I'm surprised how many times I've seen that recently. And I can't think of a time where I thought or my buyers thought it was helpful to the resale value of the home. And concrete's very, very expensive. So people who do this are investing a ton of money. And unfortunately, when I bring buyers through, especially if it's hot outside, it just makes the backyard so much less of a pleasant place. In fact, I had clients once start singing that old Joni Mitchell song that the Counting Crows covered. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Don't get me wrong, a nice concrete patio can really enhance the value of a backyard, but it has to live in balance with the living elements of the yard. And that's whether you choose to xeriscape or apply lawn or some other design element. But if you go overboard on the concrete, I think it can really diminish it. So be cautious on how much concrete you're pouring over your backyard. My fourth improvement to be cautious of are garage conversions. If there is anything Northern Nevadans love, I've learned, it's garage space. We love having storage space. We love having vehicle space so we don't have to scrape our windshields. Don't make your home garageless and force your buyers to park in the driveway or worse on the street and scrape their vehicles in the winter. And if you have a small driveway to begin with, it's a double no-no. And it's a triple no-no if you don't get a required permit for the conversion. Now, as I've said before, if you need to do it to stay in place in the home, I understand. But at the very least, make sure you get the permits you need so that you have a legal garage conversion. It just creates a mess if you don't get the permits. So definitely check with the building department before doing it. And if it's all avoidable, I think that garage conversions generally diminish the value of the home more than they add a lot of times. The last improvement I want you to be cautious of are leased or financed solar panels, unless you have a way of paying the financing off before you close escrow. I love solar. I think solar panels are great. And I'm a big proponent of solar panels, but ideally, they need to be paid in full at close of escrow, or they have at least the potential to really complicate a transaction. I found that buyers are pretty excited about the energy savings that come with solar panels when the equipment is free and clear, but they're a lot less excited about those savings when they're largely offset by another bill that they have to pay. I haven't seen a ton of leased solar panels, but I think leased solar panels definitely don't add value to your home, and they create huge complications for the person trying to buy your home if you want them to assume the lease. And the same is true for finance solar panels. In extreme situations, I've seen buyers having to assume the loan or the lease can actually kill the financing and end the transaction. But even in the best case scenario, it's just a hurdle that the buyer has to jump over, and they're really not excited about doing it. I've sold homes that have financing that the buyers had to assume, and it's worked just fine. But I would say that it has worked in spite of the finance solar panels, not because of it. So in my opinion, leasing is something that I would not be interested at all from a resale perspective. And if I were financing it, I would rather want the price of my home to reflect paying the financing off at close of escrow, which sometimes is possible and sometimes is not. But if you're putting solar panels in because you want them and you plan to use them for many years, that's awesome. And if financing is the way to get in the door and do that, I totally understand. I'd caution that as much as I like solar, in my experience, a lot of buyers don't catch the vision of the value of the utility savings because it's spread out over so many years. So if you're getting solar because you want to and it works for you, that's great. There's lots of reasons to like solar. But even fully owned solar doesn't get you dollar for dollar value back right away from a resale perspective. In my conversations with appraisals, even fully owned solar doesn't give a dollar for dollar increase in the value of the home. I would be very leery of getting solar if I thought there was any possibility that I was going to need to move or sell my house in the near future. Um, Even if I was going to pay for them in full, but especially if I needed to finance them because it just creates more complications than than it than it's worth.